star announcing vacancy burn out as we arrived to throw us back across the border. If they knew that we'd survive, and they were surprised to see us, so they greeted us with palms. They asked for ammunition, acts of contrition, and small arms. And I might recite a small prayer if I ever said them. I lay down on an iron frame and found myself in Bedlam. I wish that I could take something for drowning out the noise. Wailing echoes down the corridors.
So let me just, first of all, welcome to Ask or Tell Me Anything. The number to call if you want to ask or tell me something, 888-720-9677, whatever's on your mind. Or we're actually doing a special thing today where if something is not on your mind, but you'd like to talk about it, I think we'll move you to the top of the queue. I mean, there's only one person in the queue right now, so that's not quite the leapfrog it sounds like. 888-720-WNPR. I want to just sort of set the stage here for my possible level of impairment on today's show. So I have two problems. One of them is that I stayed up too late last night because I was watching the Green Bay Packers play the Dallas Cowboys, and it went into overtime, and the game ended, spoiler, 40-40. A 40-40 tie, the second highest tie in the history of the NFL. But while that's happening, I'm experiencing physiological symptoms. I mean, I can't watch a Packers game and not get worked up. And I started to become aware, because I'm not a young man anymore, I guess started to become aware, this is probably not good for me, like to be this upset. I mean, there's so many ways that without any volitional role, I'm going to wind up being upset. I mean, it's just being alive in 2025, one is upset a lot. And I'm volunteering to be upset. I'm essentially volunteering to be upset. And my pulse is racing. And I started to also do stuff. You know when you're staying up too late, but you have to stay till the end of something? I don't know if anybody else does this, but last night I started doing all of my pre-bed rituals. Like if there was a commercial, a break in the game, I'd run in and brush my teeth, eat a gummy, whatever. So that's the problem. And I went to bed in a state of fitfulness, and I didn't get enough sleep. And then I got up this morning, and I had to go to the eye doctor for my annual exam, which I think I haven't had one of for maybe 18 months. Anyway, never mind my eyes, except that, they do that whole thing where they dilate your pupils, they put these drops in, and I don't know what else they do. And then when the exam is over and you walk out into daylight, I mean, my appointment was at 8:30. I think I got over around 9:30, quarter of 10. It was just like this, just 28 days later moment of just like searing, oh my God, the apocalypse has happened. My brain is fissuring because it's so bright out here. I can't stand another minute of it. And I'm starting to think, this is my irresponsible Robert F. Kennedy Maha thing. Maybe they just do it to sort of make you freaked out about your eyes, so you'll take better care of them, you'll come back more often. I mean, maybe the reason they put all those horrible drops in, and I still can't see very well. I mean, my vision is all blurry and stuff. Maybe they're just saying, this is what your vision would be like all the time if you don't come and see us. So you better come and see us so we can make your vision like this, but just for a very small time window. But maybe there's no other purpose than just to freak us out and mess with our heads. I know that's not true, but Robert F. Kennedy gets to say anything he wants, and there's never any consequence. All right, so here we go. We are going to do Ask or Tell Me Anything, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Those are the same numbers, but they are expressed differently. One of them is alphanumeric. 888-720-WNPR. And you can call up about any topic that's going on in your brain right now. We're going to begin with Mike. Mike from Woodbury. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Colin. So I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1953. Speaking of getting older. And I've been reading this book called Part of Our Time, Some Ruins and Monuments of the 30s by the legendary columnist, commentator Murray Kempton. Mm-hmm. And he mentions in passing, because he's talking about, there's obviously, a lot of communists and socialists at that time in America. He mentions in passing, it doesn't even mention the name, that Bridgeport had a socialist mayor.
Oh, yeah.
So I looked it up, And this guy, Jasper McLeavy, was actually, he was a socialist, and he was mayor of Bridgeport for 24 years.
Yeah, I think he was the longest-running mayor in Connecticut. So there's now some guy like in Prospect or Beacon Falls or someplace like that who's like been a mayor for 100 years or something. But I think before that, Jasper might have been the longest-serving mayor in Connecticut.
I mean, he was elected for 12 terms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. And he was a socialist. I mean, it makes sense in the early 30s because, the Depression and, everybody was absolutely fed up with both the Democrats and the Republicans.
Gee, what does that sound like?
Yeah, exactly. But he managed to hang on. I mean, into the boom years of the 50s, and people, everybody was like Zoran Mondami. Everybody was afraid that businesses were going to flee, and they didn't. So maybe Zoran should study him a little bit and pick up some cues of what to do as a socialist mayor of a big city. Yeah,
maybe we need a Jasper McLeavy biopic. Who would play Jasper? I see it as maybe Cillian Murphy with an American accent. Cillian Murphy is now my answers to all questions about who should play anything. But but I think he would be a very good Jasper McLeavy. And no, I was sort of aware of this whole thing. My mind is especially full, Mike, of useless information about Connecticut, and so that would be part of it.
There's an apocryphal quote that there was a big snowstorm and that the streets weren't plowed, and supposedly he said God put the snow there, let him take it away, which seems like a strange thing for a socialist to say, but that's actually not true. He didn't say that. His public works guy, Pete Brewster, said something kind of like that. And for some reason, everybody thinks that McLeavy, said this ridiculous thing. And the same thing, P.T. Barnum did not say there's a sucker born every minute. So I guess Connecticut is known for false quotes of famous people.
Well, also quotes being attributed, profligately to Mark Twain. And maybe Barnum a little bit too, but so many things. If something seems kind of clever, but also has a trenchant point to it, it's inevitably ascribed either to Mark Twain or Winston Churchill, whether they said it or not. So anyway, it's all good. I will say that your comment, that little anecdote you just told, reminds me of my. For 6 years, I attended a day boys school, private boys school, day school, and so we would have to come to school during snowstorms when the public schools were closed, even though. Our student body came from all over the place. They weren't necessarily in the neighborhood, and they have to drive in from Norfolk or something. And when this would be brought up, Mr. Leisure, our headmaster, would be there to greet us at the gates as we walked through, and we were always looking kind of surly and whiny. And he would say, "They put a man on the moon. You can get to school on a snowy day." And my classmate David Fexer used to say, "Yeah, like they had to plow the moon." Anyway, thanks for your call, Mike. Great to talk to you as usual. And all right, so I'm just going to write down here. I don't even know what the calls are about. This is Richard from Guilford. Hi, Richard.
Hi. I didn't get a chance to call in when you did the show on psychics.
Yeah.
I was wondering, and I didn't hear the whole show, but did you talk about the show Sneaky Pete at all?
We did not. I'm aware of that show, but we did not talk about this show.
All right.
Okay.
Well, that show takes place in Bridgeport, Connecticut for a reason, and it has to do with P.T. Barnum, really. Mm-hmm. But it has to do with con men. And at some point, they visit a town in upstate New York, a fictional town, but it turns out to be a real town near Rochester. You could look it up. That in order to open a business there, you have to have proven to the town council some psychic abilities, and it's sort of a psychic mecca in upstate New York. And they mention this in the show. And at one point in the show, it's brought out that the difference that psychics and con men have something in common. And what that is a con man tries to get you to believe in what they believe in, and a psychic tries to get you to believe in what you believe in.
Well, I'm not sure that I entirely buy that. And I would like to just say it as a point of amusement that Robyn, when she took your phone call, thought you were saying sidekicks. So I was all prepared. I was prepared to talk about Robyn. I have a lot of theories about Robyn. But Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I actually, in terms of con men, I do recommend to people if they've never seen it. And I'm about to block the name of it. So McPants is going to have to help me out with this. But it's the Mammoth movie with Joe Mantegna and Lindsay Krause.
Oh, sure.
House of Games. I got it myself. House of Games. And I love the moment where Mantegna says something like he does a con on somebody. I believe the person he does a con on is the young Bill Macy. And then he says to Lindsay Krause, he said, "Do you notice the thing? The first thing that I did was offer him money." And then he says something like, "People think being a con man is gaining the trust of other people, but it starts with giving trust to other people." And I always thought that was kind of profound.
That sort of segues into what I was saying. This was from a book. They actually took a lot of their source material for Sneaky Pete out of a book that some woman wrote about con men, and at some point the intersection was psychic. And that's how they found out about this town in upstate New York, which I can't remember the name of. But
I'm sure it'll come back to you. The minute we're off the air. Rochester is not a real town either. It exists entirely in novels and movies. I've been up there looking for it. There's nothing there. All right, so we're going to take another call here. I'm just going to take them as they pop up on the screen here. Here is Peter in maybe Wallingford. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Colin. The question I have is, I thought we might have been a democracy, but I'm not sure about it right now. Now, Charlie Kirk, he had been saying that we are not a democracy, but he's preaching freedom and justice. And I'm wondering I didn't do a lot of research on this. That's why I'm calling you. What's going through Charlie? What was going through Charlie Kirk's mind to say, that he's preaching that we have freedom and democracy?
Well, this is sort of
how does that work without democracy?
Yeah, I'm guessing. I mean, I don't know what Charlie Kirk was thinking about, and to tell you the truth, although I knew who Charlie Kirk was prior to his death, I didn't really, pay that much attention to the specifics of what he's saying. But I mean, sometimes the distinction is made between a democracy and a republic. In a democracy, basically, in a pure sort of Athenian democracy, everybody would vote on everything, but that's really not what we do. You don't vote on every single thing. You elect representatives to go and represent you in Congress. So that may have been the distinction that he was making. Beyond that, when Chris Murphy was here a few weeks ago, one thing that he said was that a substantial portion of the empowered segment of the Republican Party doesn't believe in democracy. I mean, one thing I should say is there's sort of a civics class distinction that could be made between a democracy and a republic. We're a republic. In fact, famously when the Constitutional Convention was breaking up and Benjamin Franklin walked out into the streets and some woman said to him, what did you come up with? And he said, a republic, if you can keep it, which I think seems very, very relevant to the present moment. But we use democracy more to talk about rather than in kind of the civics class version of it. We're basically talking about a system where people are empowered, where individual people are empowered, where the power resides with the citizen as opposed to the institutions. One thing Murphy was saying when he was here is that there are, in fact, Republicans who basically believe that democracies don't work anymore, or they won't work for this country. That this country has slid into a place where the only way to fix it is, in fact, to suspend or go around a lot of the things that we associate with democratic institutions and procedures. So that also could have been what was on Charlie Kirk's mind. But I also feel like we've touched off something that will probably turn into about 82 other phone calls. But let me give out the number again. It's 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Before I go to the next call, I do want to say something. I brought it up during the preamble, but I think it might be important. So I was reading this piece. It was actually just a little item in the week, but it said that, first of all, that the Kellogg Company, which makes, cornflakes and all that other stuff, they are maybe going to be bought by the Italian chocolatier and I guess general candy maker Ferrero. But it said in the piece that people don't eat that much cereal anymore, and that cereal is no longer the breakfast of champions. And I mean, it was news to me. I was not aware of that. But then when I thought about it, I thought about millennials, and they like the bowls. They like bowls. And the thing about the bowls is, you would think. I mean, I eat something out of a bowl every day. I eat cereal. I don't call it a bowl. I say I'm going to go have some cereal. But the millennials, they eat bowls. And I'm never entirely sure what that means. But now you go into any kind of restaurant at any time of day, you're likely to be offered a bowl. I feel like we might be turning into dogs. I mean, they're just going to put bowls in front of us, and we're going to put our faces in them, and we're going to call that a meal. But anyway, I'm alarmed. I'm alarmed to hear that cereal culture is going the way of the dodo or something. Anyway, let me go back to the phones here. It's 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. Let's go to, let's go to Dylan in Connecticut. Hi, Dylan.
Hi, Colin. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, great to have you.
My thing I'd like to share today is that there's a strong correlation with neurodivergence, basically people who are autistic, ADD, even folks who are gender nonconforming, and hypermobility of joints. So the more flexible your skin is, the more likely, if you're double jointed or have neat party tricks, you're much more likely. There's a strong correlation with neurodivergence. So I've been I'm an educator. I work with a lot of neurodivergent folk, and it's just an observation. That's why all the freaks are weird. That's why all the Gumby folk are more likely to be just unusual, not just physically, but also in personality, because there's
wait a minute, the Gumby folk? You're talking about that like that's sort of a subspecies of humanity? The Gumby folk? Who are the Gumby folk?
So there are several different recognized hypermobility conditions where folks are double jointed, their elbows can extend past 180 degrees, or their skin is really flexible, like they can their skin is almost like silly putty that. And
so they are the Gumby. Do they self-identify as Gumby folk? I'm Gumby folk. Damn it.
It's the best term I can find. I heard this from a surgeon friend of mine who works with all manner of human bodies, and she made this observation years ago. Just the Gumby folk, and that was a term I picked up, but it seems a fair and unoffensive term for these all of us people who are our bodies are disproportionately more flexible, also tend to just have more unusual, maybe even more flexible minds.
Yes, well, that could be. I mean, I hope we're not putting kind of maha stuff on the air right now. Like there is, like if I go and look for some peer-reviewed research about this, I will find this, or is this kind of anecdotal? Or
yes. There's I observe it in my life as an educator anecdotally, but peer-reviewed. There is a very strong correlation with neurodivergence and hypermobility. Interestingly enough, one particular condition, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, is strongly correlated with gender nonconformity.
So if I go to the New England Journal of Medicine website and just type in Gumby folk,
Gumby folk. I'm sorry. I'm speaking colloquially. Hypermobility is the more.
But I like the idea that there are Gumby folk. I want to know Gumby folk.
Now I self-identify as a Gumby person. I happen to also have.
I'm more of a Pokey, actually. I think I'm more of a Pokey than a Gumby.
I hear that. I feel that. I definitely feel that.
I'm along to give Gumby a ride. Gumby's along for the ride with me, but I don't feel like I can't. No, I'm the opposite. I mean, first of all, as an Irish American, for my entire life, my body has had about 12 degrees of flexibility in any given joint. It's just not something like if you watch somebody, if you go to go to Galway and just see a bunch of people standing straight up and not really moving very much, they might be doing yoga. That could be a yoga class because the body just doesn't really move all that well. But you've given me a lot to think about. I don't know whether I'm going to enjoy thinking about it, Dylan, but you've given me a lot to think about. All right, we really absolutely have to take a break. But Chris, hang on there. You too, Stephen, who is driving. Drive carefully, Stephen. William, We'll get to all of you. 888-720-WNPR.
Wonderful phrase, just to hear those three little words. That's all I'd live for the rest of my days. And what I feel in my...
That's Samara Joy. We're sort of at the point where anything Samara Joy does, we have to pay attention to. All right, so it's Ask Her, Tell Me Anything. We've got Chris. We've got Stephen. All these are all good topics. Cynthia, also a good topic. William, a lot of people on the line here. 888-720-WNPR. Just because Stephen's driving and I'm somewhat concerned about his, just his wandering attention span. I think we're going to get right to Stephen's call, and then we'll go, oh, we just lost Chris. That's not good either. All right, Stephen from Farmington. Hi, you're on the air.
Hello, Colin. And I have good news. I am no longer driving.
Okay.
I just arrived at my destination right on time.
All right. Excellent. So you've got a couple of seconds before you go in there.
Yes. So my basic question is, what's your opinion on the state of streaming now that it seems there was this report I read just a few days ago about how the typical household went from 4 different streaming subscriptions to 2. And I think, do you think that there's going to be some pushback against this all on demand, all the time thing back to perhaps a linear broadcast model? Or do you think we're in sort of a in-between thing to something we don't even know what's going to be yet?
Here's what I think. First of all, I think this is an unbelievably complicated question that you're asking. At least the answer is very complicated. We could easily do a 49-minute show about this whole thing. I would say in general that yes, the novelty wore off, and then people realized that, when you're paying, somewhere between, 16 and 22 bucks a month for something, you're starting to be in service of it. You're starting thinking, well, I should watch some stuff on Hulu because I'm paying for it. And so the more of these things that you have, the more that they're starting to schedule you as opposed to the other way around, because just to kind of, cognitively justify how much you're paying every month. I have a lot of streaming services, but part of that is because we're talking about this stuff all the time and we don't have that much choice. I think also there's growing resentment about sports on streaming services. Just as a quick example here, regionally, the Red Sox clinched a playoff spot on Friday night. That particular event, it was pretty exciting, and they haven't been to the playoffs in a long time, and it was a walk-off triple by their center fielder. And people were really upset because it was on Apple TV, Apple Plus. If you didn't have Apple Plus, you couldn't watch this. The regular Red Sox announcers could not announce it or make the call. And these days, if you're a sports fan and you like football or baseball or anything, and it's really important for you to see certain things, you have to get all kinds of stuff. There's live sports all over the place on Apple TV, on Amazon Prime, on HBO Max, and that's frustrating to people. People are getting really bad about the fact that something that they care about that they used to be able to get pretty much over the transom, they now have to pay for. So I think there's a rearrangement going on. I also think because of all this stuff that's just going on with mergers and acquisitions, basically everything, all of these things will at some point belong to one or another member of the Ellison family. Larry Ellison will own a number of streaming services and movie companies. Curly Ellison will probably own some other ones and then I don't know how many Mo is going to wind up owning. But the Ellisons are just buying stuff up. So, I mean, there's going to be mergers. There's going to be acquisitions of some of these companies where stuff gets kind of mushed together. I mean, we've already seen it with Disney and Hulu and stuff like that. But you'll see it now on a mergers and acquisition basis, and stuff will get smushed together, but it'll cost more. And I do think there is some interest in linear TV now, and some desire to still have it somehow. The problem is if you cut the cord, like I cut the cable a long time ago, so I have to pay like $70-$80 a month to YouTube TV to have linear TV. So that's linear TV isn't kind of what it used to be all that much either. And I think another thing that's happening is I noticed at the New York Times this weekend, one of their little boxed features in their art section on one of the weekend days was movies you can watch for free on, like, I don't know, they all have names like Fubo, Fubo and Pluto and all those, Tubi, all those kind of free ad-supported streaming or cable kind of things.
Pet dog names, I notice.
What do you notice?
They're all like pet dog names, like Pluto and...
Yes, exactly. You have to go in the yard and throw a Frisbee for your television. How rewarding is that? It's probably good for us, though. Get a little fresh air, limber up the arms. So, I mean, the answer is this is going to be really, really complicated. I think it's unsupportable under the current model, particularly because so many things are going wrong with the economy, and so many things are costing so much more. I mean, things that are possibly more vital to your life than having a number of streaming services, like, I don't know, food and energy. So it's an unsustainable model in a whole bunch of different ways. They've got to fix it. They got to figure it out. They kind of went through a crisis, about 3 or 4 years ago, where they realized that they were treating themselves as kind of stock price based tech companies as opposed to people who are in the business of charging you so you could watch something. And they got a little bit more serious about that latter aspect of it. All right. Anyway, I hope that was helpful or mildly confusing or something. All right. Let's go to Chris in Avon. Then we'll go to Cynthia in Waterbury. We got William in Middletown as well. Here we go. Hi, Chris. You have the floor.
Hello. When you said Ellison family, I thought you said elephant family.
Yes, there's a group of
very metaphorical.
Yeah, there's a group of elephants in Kenya who are trying to buy a TV network right now. So you're not wrong.
I thought I missed something.
They're buying it for peanuts. That's a little bad. That's a dad joke. It's a dad joke. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm all choked up. Yeah. I wanted to go back to the Charlie Kirk thing because, and you're probably aware of this. I'm an Ezra Klein fangirl, and Ezra Klein, right after the Kirk murder, put out, an immediate thing saying this is a terrible thing. He was a voice, freedom of speech guy. And
well, I mean, the thing he got in trouble for the most, part of it was the headline. As a columnist, I can tell you, I'm constantly defending the headlines that appear on my columns, which I don't write, but the headline has something to do with Charlie Kirk, who practiced politics the right way. I think that particular phrase, the right way, really bothered people. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So, and Ta-Nehisi Coates clapped back in a Vanity Fair article. And that article is worth reading because your previous caller was saying, "Oh, what's the deal with Charlie Kirk and democracy?" Mm-hmm. And Ta-Nehisi Coates, who then went on Ezra Klein and said, "Well, I didn't really know that much about this guy, but after all of this, I said, well, let me look into this more," and pretty quickly dredged up some pretty, anti-trans, there's a lot of things.
Yeah. No, actually, I heard that exchange, and I think the point that Coates is making, and you kind of just made it too, but I want to emphasize it because it was sort of interesting. Typically when something like this happens, and then there's the set of reactions and counter reactions that we saw after the tragic killing of Charlie Kirk, you'll hear people say, I didn't know too much about him, and I had this kind of idea what he was like, and then so I checked it out, and it really wasn't that bad, and he's been kind of caricatured, and maybe I didn't really appreciate some of the points he was trying to make. And Ta-Nehisi Coates was saying he had the exact opposite experience.
Yeah.
He was kind of thinking, well, maybe there's some stuff I didn't really get that's a little bit more redeeming, and then the deeper he dove, the darker and more malicious it got. So I do want to say this, and I don't mean to subvert your point, because I think you have one, but I was impressed. So here, I thought the Ezra Klein piece was, if they gave an award out every year for the dumbest piece written by a really smart person, that would just go to Ezra. There'd be no competition. He'd be like the Meryl Streep of that award, because he's really, really smart, and he just wrote a dumb column. And his explanation also, like if you heard the conversation with Coates, and it was actually there in the Vanity Fair article, Klein sort of says, well, I understood some of the problems with Charlie Kirk, but I just wanted to say something that, that was more healing, and maybe just
I think he was trying to be a rabbi there.
Yeah. And Ta-Nehisi Coates said, silence wasn't an option. Because, there's that thing that our mother used to say to us. This is my sister who's calling right now. And so our mother used to say to us, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And so Ezra, instead of doing that, he didn't have anything nice to say, so he made up something nice. It didn't occur to him to say nothing at all. That just was not in his playbook at all. But I give Ezra Klein a lot of. I'm kind of an Ezra fanboy, as you probably know, and I give Ezra Klein a lot of credit. So Ta-Nehisi Coates, and they know each other and they text each other on a regular basis. They're in touch. I don't know if they're exactly friends, but they're something like friends. And
they're in dialogue.
And they're in a dialogue, yeah. And so he writes this kind of dumb piece, and then Coates just goes into Vanity Fair and just rips it to shreds. And Klein's reaction is to invite him on the show, which is Klein's reaction to everything. And some of that is sort of, the Efron sisters used to say everything is copy. So when bad stuff happens to you, at least you can get something out of it. You can write it. You can, and I think Klein operates a little bit that way. It's like, rather than trying to shut the door against this, I'm going to open the door and bring it in. And now I've got something else. I've got something else to work with and something to do. But I think beyond that, there is in Ezra Klein some genuine belief that that's what you should do. If someone tears into you, but it's somebody who is obviously, someone, in this case, quite admirable, you should have a conversation with that person. And that's what he does really well. I think he does it better than almost anybody right now. And it is kind of missing. So anyway, but I interrupted your thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. That was basically, if people want to know more, it's difficult. And Charlie Kirk is becoming Saint Charlie in some places. And, it's getting to the point of what, he's a martyr. I said, not a martyr.
There is a deification going on. And then there are all these things where they're, like in Oklahoma, every public university is going to have a statue of Charlie Kirk on the campus as a matter of by fiat or statute or something like that.
Yeah. At least in the South, they waited a couple of decades before they started putting.
But that means like 50 years from now, we'll really be gone from the scene. 50 years from now, there's big debate about whether to take the Charlie Kirk statues down. If the country's kind of evolved to like, oh no, I think these monuments to Charlie Kirk really need to be removed. I do want to quickly say one thing, and I'm not saying it just to you, Chris, but I'm saying it in general. I think the Ezra Klein thing is the whole thing that he's doing right now. I mean, it can, and I know people who do, reduce it to a kind of vacuousness, that you're just sort of open to talking to anybody about anything. And so you're failing to make any point at all. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's right. And I think we can all take a little, one little page from this thing. After listening to him on New Yorker Radio Hour and then listening him to talk to Ta-Nehisi Coates on his own show, I was looking at social media this week, and I was on X. I've been at a point where I don't use X very much, except for Packers, the Packers beat writers. They're all over X. And then I look for Penguin videos to send to my granddaughter. And that's sort of like what I do with X. But I was on X, and there were a group of people were ripping into a column that I'd written and ripping into me and saying horrible stuff to me. And at one point, this woman named Christy, so I won't say her whole name, I guess, but this woman named Christy, she said Colin McEnroe should shut his big Irish mouth, which I thought, oh, wow, it's a long time since I got an Irish ethnic slur from anybody not actually related to me. But what I did was I went on there and I did say, look, I just don't think this is a very good forum. And I think people are kind of performatively rude here. But if you'd like to talk to me, any of you who are attacking me right now, here's my email address, which I will give out now, to Colin, Colin, at ctpublic.org. And I'd be happy to hear from you and write back to you and whatever. And nobody did because they were having so much fun being performatively rude. And that may be the thing that is the final undoing of Ezra Klein and of me, is that people really like being jerks on social media. That's why they're there. They're not there to make America better. They're there to be nuisances and get under people's, get on people's nerves and stuff. Anyway, Chris, final thought?
No, my phone's acting weird.
I just lulled you into a stupor anyway, basically. That happens. I do that. Our number, by the way, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Yeah, I'm just going to try to squeeze Cynthia's call on right now, and then we'll go right to a break, I promise. Cynthia in or from Waterbury. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. Good afternoon. I wanted to talk with you today about Trump and the 800 generals.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like a story.
Yeah, they're not all generals there. I think some of them are but they're general officers anyway, yes. So for people who don't know, Pete Hegseth has asked for the 800 high-ranking military officials to gather in his presence in a way that's very, very different from what is typically done. The military has super sophisticated. We have Zoom, they have something that's Zoom on steroids and far more secure and stuff like that. And they do a lot of communicating that way. The idea that you would all travel to one place for a whole bunch of different reasons is just something that doesn't happen, except that Pete Hegseth and now Trump have decided that it has to happen. Anyway, continue.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it's never been done before in our country's history. Mm-hmm. And what scares me the most is the leak that came out of the Pentagon yesterday that this is not a warrior ethos conversation. Instead, it's a conversation similar to what Hitler had with his top military advisors, etc., when he demanded in 1934 that they pledge loyalty to him instead of to the Constitution. And it's being said now that is what the meeting is for, and Trump will be there, and that's what's going to happen. And what's interesting about this the most is that now, with the government shutdown probably happening, these generals will be stuck, and all the people who are adversaries will have an open door around the world. But the whole thing is scaring me a lot, because I know that we're venturing into totalitarian, authoritarian ground here. Yeah,
I mean, I actually I think the scenario that you just put out is one of the more benign ones. It's simply that they'll be asked to swear some kind of fealty. No, I mean, my first reaction is there's a shutdown. They're going to take advantage of this somehow. For greater power consolidation. I mean, that's where my darkest thoughts went right away. Now, I've since heard that what Hegseth really wants to know from all of these high-ranking military officers is whether they're Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah. And if that's it, that's fine. I don't see why they have to fly all the way there to say that. They could just email their answer. Anyway, Cynthia, thank you so much for dropping by. We're going to have to go to a little break here, and I need to make this close. But anyway, yes, thanks for your time, and we'll be back. We'll take a little break. We'll be back. We'll finish the show. I mean, why not finish it? All right, so we are back, and it's time to say some thank yous. We're going to start with the maestro himself, our technical producer, Dylan Reyes, who picked out that particular piece of music for you to listen to. This is being produced by Jonathan McPants, who's there in the studio right now, and Robyn Doyon-Aitken is screening calls. She's our boss. She's way too important to do that, but she doesn't think she's too important to do anything, and that's one of the things we like about her, that she doesn't think she's too important to do something. And we are going to go, this is exciting news I don't know whether it's really exciting news or not. We think it's exciting news. So the Hartford Stage Company is going to be doing an onstage production of the intellectual property known as Rope, the Hitchcock movie Rope. And on Monday night, October 13th at 7 p.m. at Hartford Stage, we're going to do a show on their stage. The play will not be taking place. They're off on Monday nights. I don't want you to think we're sitting there in the middle of their production talking. But we're going to do a show about Alfred Hitchcock to go along with their new production of Rope. The conversation that we're going to be taping a show up there. It'll be free. I don't know that you're going to have to, I think, maybe reserve tickets. I don't think they're quite ready for you to do this. We will let you know. But what we want you to do now is just reserve that night in your calendar. Monday night, October 13th, 7 p.m., Hartford Stage. We've got a terrific panel of guests, including the most recent edition, the official movie star of the Colin McEnroe show, Ileana Douglas. So that'll be good. So save the date. Make a refrigerator magnet and put it on your refrigerator to remind you. But don't make it in the shape of food, because then people eat them. All right, so I think that's all of the thank yous and hellos and goodbyes and stuff. Joe Cost is running the YouTube part of our show and all that kind of stuff. We're going to go to the phones right now. The number is 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. We got a little time left, and we've got quite a few open lines, so why don't you call in? And meanwhile, William from Middletown, who's been waiting either patiently or impatiently for quite some time.
When you're in the queue waiting to get on the show, you start thinking of all these other things that you could talk about. But anyway, in the beginning of the show, you were talking about mayors, and it triggered something in me because I recently was reading about the mayor of Memphis in the 30s, early 40s, and his name was Crump.
Yep.
And he got to power in such a exact way. It's like our president might have read about this guy and said, this is what I have to do to get to power. Of course, after he finished Mein Kampf. But anyway, the only person who opposed him, because he stayed in power for about 20 years, was a black pharmacist. And he almost got him out of office, but not quite.
I feel like that wasn't like from the family that produced the later Congressman Harold Ford. I think that might have been, it wasn't Harold Ford's family, was it, who produced the opponent? I don't know.
Maybe.
I have to check it out. I don't remember too, but I do know that he put out a number of blues albums as Blind Memphis Crump. But he wasn't really blind. That was just, once again, another act of chicanery, really. The albums are not that bad. No, Crump actually, and he was a Democrat back when the Democratic Party had not completely sloughed off their pro-slavery past. Although Crump himself, I think, was popular among black voters. He didn't believe in civil rights, but he really liked the idea of suffrage for black voters because they tended to vote for him for whatever reason. So yeah. So it's interesting, but you're right. His name is Crump. It's just like one letter. Maybe we're living in a computer simulation, and this was like an error they made. They're probably looking at it and going, "Oh yeah, Trump. We didn't see that. We were doing the programming. So maybe nothing we're doing right now is real."
It makes one think.
It does make one think, but maybe we're not supposed to be thinking. All right, so we're almost out of time right now. I do want to say one thing. We had the conversation a little while about streaming services. And I've been thinking, this is not some kind of holistic commentary. This is just a little personal thought that I had over the weekend, which is, what are the ways that algorithms work, whether it's a streaming service or the way that you get your music now, whether that be it Spotify or Tidal or whatever. The way that algorithms, for the most part, work is that they try to figure out something that you like and that you've engaged with, ideally on more than one occasion and for more than 60 seconds. And so the whole thing is like, what do you like and how can we get you to to know that this other thing is very similar to the thing that you like so much. And one thing I think they don't take into account, although I guess Netflix at the end, they sort of ask you thumbs up, thumbs down, they ask you to express a little bit more of your thoughts about it. But I think they really don't take into account things that you don't like. And I'm going to give a personal example. So I've been hearing a lot about this series on Netflix called Black Rabbit. It has Jason Bateman, who I also like a lot, and Jude Law, who I also like a lot, and people who like a lot of the things that I like. I mean, rather than the algorithm, typically, it's better just to talk to people. But even people can't necessarily factor for your idiosyncratic sort of predispositions. And so I didn't like The Bear. It bothered me. It made me anxious in a way that I didn't enjoy. And so Black Rabbit is really, it's like The Bear with somewhat higher stakes. It's like The Bear, but really, maybe some people are really going to go down on this one. And so I'm sitting there watching it, episode after episode. The significant other and I are watching it, and neither one of us is enjoying it that much. But we've been told it's good and that we would probably like it. And I think one of the things the algorithms could do is say, if you didn't like The Bear, you're not going to like this, so don't bother. I realize that's counter to the interest of streaming services. They would like you to try as many things as possible. But really, I mean, I would be using my streaming time more efficiently if they would tell me, oh, this is like something that you don't like. Anyway, we have to go. I hope we are something that you do like, not something that you don't like. But if we're something that you don't like, please don't tell me.